wonderful. Welcome to Servus Crowd, Germany for non-Germans, and welcome back to another episode here. And yeah, I have to break my promise now, obviously already. I promised, I think 2 weeks ago, I said, hey, let's not make every other episode political, but of course I have to be political. But this also means there will be at least one more episode this year because I don't want to end on something political. But we have to talk about politics for a bit, of course, because we, Germany, have a new government. And the era Angela Merkel, that's how you pronounce her name, by the way, not Angela Merkel, Angela Merkel. The era Angela Merkel is over now. She's the second longest running chancellor in German history. I think she missed Helmut Kohl only by like 16 or 18 days or something around those lines. They could have dragged it out a bit longer. But she's gone, and there's this fantastic GIF circulating online where she fist bumps the new chancellor and then just waves by. And there's like transition of power in German style, and she's like, I'm out of here. And I'm sure she's super happy, and she deserved it. I mean, as I mentioned in previous episodes, I haven't been necessarily always a fan of her party, but you can't deny that she did a lot of good things and that she had what it seems the greater good in mind when she was running the government on German as well as on a European level. So I think that's something we can take away from this without having to be like either a big fan of hers or her party, or the other way around, hating on her or her party for that matter. I'm not here to discuss this. I'm here to tell you what's next, who's next, what's happening, and who should follow a trailblazing female chancellor with a PhD in physics. Of course, a straight old white man. I don't even know what his background is. So we're back to I almost said normal. I mean, actually, it's not normal because Angela Merkel has, now I say it in English too, Angela Merkel has been in office for 16 years or so, right? So lots of the younger guys, girls, people listening, they only know her. They don't know that the chancellor can be male. They think the chancellor has to be female. Next in line now is a male chancellor again, for a change. It's fine to say that. His name is Olaf Scholz. He's from the SPD, so he's from the Social Democrats. And yeah, who would have thought that the SPD is going to be in the government, right? Olaf Scholz is the man, and I said it like a few weeks ago, he's like the guy that just didn't fuck up. Like, for a while, it was like Annalena Baerbock from the Green Party, the Greens, who was in the front, but then issues, as discussed in one of the previous podcasts, prevented her from actually being the front runner. Then the opponent from the CDU also effed up a little bit here and there. And so Olaf Scholz, the guy who didn't F up, is now our chancellor. So, who is Olaf Scholz, right? So as someone from southern Germany, for me, Olaf Scholz is like the cliche of a northern German. If you ask me, hey, you guy from Bavaria, and yes, I'm a bit butthurt that there's no Bavarian in the government now. How would you describe a typical person from Hamburg? I would describe Olaf Scholz to you. He has like this nickname, Teflon Scholz. Teflon, like the coating that you have in pans that just make things like liquids and so on not stick, the not sticky coating of a pan. Because scandals just don't stick to him. And he seems a little bit robotic, like it's what we think northern Germans are, and not really passionate. They're like more robotic. Some people in the media call him Scholz-O-Mat, like a machine. But I think, and if my research serves me right, which in this case is Wikipedia, he was the mayor of Hamburg. And before he was the Minister of Finance, the finance minister in the last government. So he's familiar with how governments and so on work, of course. and he's very much leaning towards what the CDU also kind of stands for, like this. Like, so he's not hardcore left or anything, or hardcore liberal. He's like in a center left party. He's the center left right, I would say. Okay. Things that he's going to tackle right now in Germany, right? I mean, the coronavirus wave, is it the fourth now that's in Germany, the new Omicron? But I mean, let's not talk about COVID here right now. Exclusively. Climate change is always a thing. Germans are very aware of this. Inflation, as everywhere in the world. Russia, Ukraine. Germany has a strict stance on this as well. They say if Russia enters Ukraine, for example, there's going to be issues. They also have like a strongish stance on China. Then they talk about more commitment to the NATO or not, right-wing extremism, and so on. So it's pretty like his plate is pretty full. So that's what Olaf Scholz, and that's how I pronounce it, Olaf Scholz, has to do or has to work with now that he's our first male chancellor in 16 years. All right, the head of the chancellery, Wolfgang Schmidt, is the most German name ever, Wolfgang Schmidt. So no surprise there. They've been working, like Schmidt and Scholz have been working together for a while, so that just makes sense to bring Wolfgang Schmidt with him. They work well together, apparently. The funny thing is that Schmidt, judging from the media, is like way more active, more, how to say, jovial, right? Like more friendly, and also uses Twitter way more actively, rather than Scholz, who's like really like grounded and like not doing any of those things. So that's kind of funny, actually. Schmidt also hablas español, which is kind of nice. I'm already laughing because I just thought about this German podcast. If you're a German speaker, if you speak German, actually, listen to the podcast. But if you're from Germany, you know the podcast. But if you're not from Germany and you speak German, or you want to learn some German and you want to listen to German, listen to the podcast Gemischtes Hack. They also, it's like comedy podcast in German with two comedians. It's really cool. They talk about lots of stuff, also serious at times. And they discussed the new cabinet as well, and they had like lots of fun with the new Minister of the Interior and Community, Nancy Faeser, because her name just sounds like from a science fiction, from a Star Trek show or something. This is Nancy Faeser, pew pew pew. That's what they said, so I didn't come up with this. So she has been a little less known, I think, because I didn't know her, to be honest. I had to Google her. She's the head of the SPD, the Social Democrats in Hessen, in Germany. And she's kind of famous in the media. Like when I searched for, yes, I use Google, sorry. When I searched, not DuckDuckGo, when I searched for like her accomplishments and what she's famous for, apparently she's famous for fighting neo-Nazi groups, which is a good thing. And apparently neo-Nazis even threatened her. So, interesting. So, she seems to be like the tough dog in the cabinet, the one who's like, I'm gonna do what's right and I'm gonna do it no matter what. So she's the kind of you always have those types in like any American TV show, and she seems to be just like that kind of type. So yeah, I guess one of her top concerns will be like the far right rise in Germany. Minister of Health is the German superhero in the media, Karl Lauterbach. Karl Lauterbach is very outspoken. He's become very famous during the pandemic. He's been on every talk show ever. He's very much for like tough measures to tackle the COVID pandemic. And he seems to be, or like people in the media say he's a bit eccentric, which then also leads to apparently people within his party not necessarily always agreeing with him. But he's quite famous in the media, and the media was like mostly happy with him being appointed Minister of Health because he's so famous. He's outspoken. He shares his thoughts and so on. Yeah. I saw on Twitter that there's a fun fact about him. Apparently, he stopped adding salt to his food in 1989. Twitter find. There you go. Okay, the Minister of Defense, by the way, yeah, Karl Lauterbach, you will see him on lots of TV shows moving forward, I'm sure. Minister of Defense, Christine Lambrecht. She's been with the Chancellor Scholz, for a while, I believe. She was in the Justice Ministry in the previous government. And she took over the Ministry of, let me check my notes, Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth. After her party colleague, Miss Franziska Giffey, then stepped down due to plagiarism accusations. That's a thing in Germany right now. Huh? Interesting enough, so Christine Lambrecht didn't really work with national security before, as far as I'm concerned. So, interesting choice. Also, according to my research, Wikipedia and Google, the budget is usually around 50 billion euros for the Ministry of Defense, which is the second biggest spending portfolio in Germany. So she has to do a lot there. For example, replacing bomber aircraft, the NATO commitments, of course. So this is going to be really interesting. Like then she's gonna get new equipment for the Bundeswehr, for the army. So yeah, and work on digitalization of the military. Good luck, and cybersecurity, of course. That's a tough gig, I think. The Minister for Construction is Clara Geiwitz. Clara Geiwitz. I'm hesitating because before I want to talk about her, I'm going to talk about the Ministry for Construction, the Construction Ministry, because when I heard it, I'm like, we have a Minister for Construction now? Then I did some research. I'm like, this is the first time that there's a Ministry for Construction. It's a standalone ministry since the 90s. Interesting. So she grew up in Germany's East. So she's one of two, I think, representatives in the parliament right now, or in the cabinet. From Eastern Germany. She worked as a lawmaker in Brandenburg. She pushed for a gender equality quota back then, which was not successful, no surprise. And back, I think 2 years ago, her and Olaf Scholz wanted to be like co-leaders of the SPD, but it didn't really work. Nevertheless, now Scholz is the chancellor and she's the Minister for Constructions. I think some of the biggest issues that she has to tackle with the ministry is like the housing crisis, because it's getting really, really expensive now also in Germany. And the German government said like they're going to build several 100,000 new homes each year with like, I think a certain quota should be like affordable housing. So that's going to be very interesting. All right, so that's the ministers from the SPD. Let's look at the Green Party, because, I talked to you about it last time. It's the traffic light coalition, Ampelkoalition in German. So the SPD, the Social Democrats, are red. Now let's move to green. Vice Chancellor here is Robert Habeck, the co-leader of the Green Party. So no surprise that he's going to be the Vice Chancellor and the Minister for Economy and Climate Protection. Of course, someone from the Green Party should be in climate protection. It's going to be very interesting just to see like how they balance everything out with like climate protection, of course, being high on the agenda of the Greens, while then the yellow, which is going to come in a second, is obviously not that high on it. So that's going to be really interesting. Robert Habeck himself, he's been in the media and in politics for a while. He's a well-known figure, I think. He was back then in 2010 sometime. He's also Deputy Premier and Minister for Energy, Environment, Agriculture, and so on. So in his home state. So he knows stuff. He seems sometimes a little bit like melancholy, like at least for someone from the south. I'm like, oh, dude, what's wrong with you? But that's just his thing, I guess. His persona, though, like he has like very frequently some really frank statements. Sometimes also more sweeping. Like you think, wow, did you really say that? Once in a while, he also messes up though, so that's gonna be fun. I think. Yeah. He, by the way, does not speak Espanol, but he speaks Danish, not Spanish, Danish. Multilanguage, whatever. Lots of people speak different languages. That's, I think, a good thing. Okay, interesting now. The Minister for Foreign Affairs is Annalena Baerbock, the first ever Green candidate to run for Chancellor. Yeah, it didn't work the way she wanted. But still, like the best ever result for the Greens. So that was still quite impressive. Of course, they thought they're gonna do better, but still better than ever. So that was something cool, I believe. Yes, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, she's gonna have to do everything. So let's hope she stays cool, calm, and collected, and focused on the task at hand, because she's gonna represent us quite a lot now, which is of course something nice as a younger Green Party, female Green Party leader. So which I think that might go over well abroad. Okay, let's make it a bit faster. Minister for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer Protection. Nuclear safety and consumer protection in one ministry. Interesting. Steffi Lemke. Steffi Lemke is someone who you might not know, because I had to research her as well. She was a parliament spokesperson, I believe, for environmental protection, but this was all I could find. She's a trained zoo technician. That's one of the other things I could find about her. Interesting. And she's the second one from Eastern Germany. So yeah, congratulations. Looking forward to seeing what she can do. Not that familiar with her yet, but that doesn't mean she's not good for the job. So let's see what she can do. Now the last famous one from the Greens, Minister of Food and Agriculture, Cem Özdemir. Cem Özdemir is probably the best known member of the Green Party, who's now in the cabinet. He used to be the Green Party leader a while ago. He used to be like the expert for foreign affairs and so on. His parents are Turkish, so they're Turkish immigrants to Germany, and he's a super strict critic of the Turkish president Recep Erdogan. No one really expected him to be an agriculture specialist, to be honest. So yeah, I mean he deserves to be in the cabinet, but like I mean it's kind of like a trade-off probably. It's like, hey, you're gonna go to the parliament, but we can't have you as a foreign minister because that's gonna be tough with Turkey. So I'm sorry. So let's hope we can catch up quickly in regards to agriculture. What was fun with Özdemir was back then, right? He took part in the ice bucket challenge and he published a video. And behind him there was like a cannabis plant standing. And back then it was definitely not okay to have this in Germany. So yeah, that made him cool with the young generations. All right, let's go to the yellow in the traffic light coalition. The yellow ones, the Free Democrats, FDP, and they, of course, sent the Minister of Finance, who is Christian Lindner, in this case, Christian Lindner, leader of the FDP. He always wanted this job because it's usually it used to be the second most powerful in Germany. Yeah, the budget is around 500 billion euros, so a lot. And of course, like his party is like the finance party, basically the economy party, and having him in the Ministry of Finance, he's like, yeah, okay, let's gonna form it the way our party thinks this should be done. Yeah, so with the FDP in general, it's a thing, right? So they used to be like bigger, and then they gained some momentum, and then they crashed again, and then they recovered now with Lindner again. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like how he does, because he also has this tendency to sometimes just fuck up, and that's a nice move to what he actually talk about, because he had some entrepreneurial flops, which is fine. If you don't try, you don't succeed, right? And he actually talked at a fuck up night event how those things failed, which is kind of cool. So that he was open enough to share that. So props to him for this. So let's see what he can do with our biggest ministry. Minister of Justice is Marco Buschmann. That sounds like such a millennial name. Marco is like a. You can see that you're getting old if you think about this. All right. Well, I'm not that familiar with him. He's been in the parliament for a while. He's been with the FDP for a while. Apparently, he's pretty close to Christian Lindner, which I guess makes sense in this case. Yeah. So that shall be interesting to see, like how he handles the Ministry of Justice now, which is probably going to focus on like reforming the police and things like this. So let's see what they can do. All right, then the last one is the Minister of Transport and Digital Infrastructure. It's hilarious that this is actually the same ministry. It's infrastructure, but it's completely different infrastructure. His name is Volker Wissing. He's the Secretary General of the FDP. He used to be Transport Minister. He was Deputy Premier of Rhineland-Palatinate. Is that how I say it in English? Rhineland-Pfalz in German. I googled the name. I never know how to say it in English. Rhineland. It's from the Rhineland. Also under SPD leadership back then, so he's used to working for the SPD. So that for me is of course a very interesting one, because digital infrastructure is still a big topic. Living in Thailand, I shouldn't be complaining looking at Germany, because Germany definitely way faster and better developed than Thailand, but it's not where the bar is. That's a big issue in Germany. Like if I look back to my friends, family, like professors, former professors, and so on, they're also complaining how slow that goes ahead. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing like what they can do. Okay. There are a few other ones. Let's just quickly go through them. So to finish things off, we have Svenja Schulze in the Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development, and Hubertus Heil, Minister of Labor and Social Affairs, both from the SPD. From the Greens, we have Anne Spiegel in the Ministry of Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth. And from the FDP, we have Bettina Stark-Watzinger, not as your English teacher, but as Minister of Education and Research. So that's all that we have right now. I think that's a lot. I'm curious, because I actually had lots of discussion with foreign friends here, also here in Thailand, but friends from all across the world, but mostly European friends, like lots of friends from France, especially from France, are very outspoken and have opinions on our politics. So I'm really curious to hear, like, what do you guys think about our new government? Like, how do you feel about it? Like, now that Angie is gone, will you miss her? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. Shout out in the comments on social media at the Funkitpod, send an email, funkitpod@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, like, share, and rate it if you can, because that really helps that new people find it. And then we can have hopefully a bigger discussion on things such as what do you think of the new German government, or also hopefully more Christmassy, more New Year's-y things than next week around. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts and have a great week. And we'll talk at least one more, maybe even 2 more times before this year ends. So as always, take care, stay safe. Servus.